welcome to another up close video. Today's one is for Tonic Showcase number 18, which is called So Happy, and it is one of their stamp and die sort of combos that come in the A5 packaging. And later on in this video, past me will show you some cards that are actually featuring on the packaging, which is really exciting. So you'll get to see all of these cards in detail later on in the video, but I have done a couple of extra ones to show you in the present as well. But we'll run through all of the stamps and dies first. Also, you might want to note that my sped up video where I make a couple of the cards that are on here, this one that's hiding and this sewing machine one, I was using an A6 stamp set because that was what was originally going to come out with these, but they changed it. So I have got the A5 one to show you, but you might see the A6 one in my video. So I thought I'd just clarify that, just in case you're wondering why the stamp set size changed. But basically the other set had like all of these stamps in it, and I think they changed the font of some of the sentiments as well. So later on when you see those cards, the font might not be exactly the same as the font that I'm going to show you now, but this is what you're going to get. So this is what the font will look like, not what's on the cards that past me will show you. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. So let's have a look at the stamp set first, I think. So it's a gorgeous sewing themed showcase, which I really love, and I think my favourite bit is actually this sewing machine that's over here. I've done 3 cards now with the sewing machine, so you'll see this in like turquoise colours, then you'll see it in the kind of traditional black and gold Singer sewing machine kind of colours, and then the one that I've got to show you in the present I've done in black and red, to like change it up a little bit as well. So you'll see 3 different examples of using the sewing machine. But let's have a look at the stamp set first. So we have got this gorgeous wiggly stitching stamp, which is just like a basic running stitch, and even though it is wiggly on here, because Tonic stamps are a gorgeous high quality photopolymer, you can mould this on your stamping block or in your stamping platform. So you can make this a straight line if you want it to be, you can make it more wiggly if you want it to be as well. You could even probably get it into a kind of crescent shape too if you wanted to. So a nice versatile running stitch that you can use around the edge of your cards, you could use to show motion, or to kind of add to maybe something that you add onto the card that looks like a piece of fabric, so it looks like the sewing machine's been sewing it. Lots of different ways of using a gorgeous little running stitch. Then we have a lovely zip stamp as well. Now in the die set you get the little zipper pull, so you can actually combine that with this zipper stamp. This wasn't in the original stamp set that I got to play with, so I've made sure to use it in the cards that I'll show you. But it's a lovely like solid design with that proper zipper kind of look to it, and you do have the end piece as well, so depending how you're going to use it, you know, you could use the end or you could just have it sort of stopping in midway, which is kind of how I used it in the end. And then you do also have the little zipper pull that I'll show you later. You have a lovely tape measure. I don't think they're actual measurements, because they're smaller than an inch but they're bigger than a centimetre, but it's quite a nice extra stamp to have to go in the background, to add a little bit of interest, to use as a grounding place. You know, you could stamp this and then add the sewing machine on top of it and it could sort of ground it a little bit. And what I was doing, I think on both of the cards that I used it on, I drew around it, so it kind of gave the edges of the tape. It's actually just the sort of measuring guide, so it's nice and versatile, but I actually drew on the edges and kind of gave it a torn edge, so it looked like it was ripped off. But if you did it down here, you could add on the last few lines and do a number 0, and then add on the little bit of metal that you usually get on one of those sort of flexible fabricy measuring tapes as well. And this is longer than the one that I previously had on the smaller stamp set as well, so it's really nice that they've extended it up to number 10 as well. Then we've got quite a few other sort of sewing trinkets, accessories, those kind of things. So you've got a lovely spool of cotton on a proper like wooden cotton reel, which is nice. You've got a lovely little bow, so that could be you know, like a pre-made bow as part of a haberdashery kind of selection on a card, or it could be to go on the hat or the dress as well. You've got a lovely pair of scissors. I really like those scissors. And they're really easy to cut out as well, which is nice. You've got a little clothes peg, which is a lovely little addition. Again, if you're doing like a haberdashery kind of selection on a card, having all these little extra elements just in there works really nicely. You've got a different kind of spool of thread. So would you call that one a bobbin? No, that's the small thing that goes under the bottom of the sewing machine. Anyway, it's a different kind of spool. This could be baker's twine, couldn't it, rather than an actual thread. So you've got a different version of that. You've got a hat, which is really lovely, and you have the die to cut out the hat. You also have the die to cut out the bow as well, and you also have the die to cut out the dress too. So you can add the bow to the dress, you can use the hat and the dress together as well. You also get in this one a little pair of shoes, so you can really combine the hat, the dress, the shoes together, and you also get a little shopping bag, which is really nice too. And down here you also get a coat hanger, so you can put the coat hanger above the dress, you know, rest the hat on the coat hanger, have the shoes and the bag in the foreground, and really make a complete card for someone who's really into their fashion. And I think this dress would be perfect for paper piecing, but the old-fashioned kind of paper piecing where you stamped the image onto a patterned paper and then cut it out and then put it back on here. And when I do that kind of thing, I love to add shading where the sort of folds of the fabric are. So even though I've used one piece of patterned paper, I use my alcohol pens just to add a little bit of really light kind of shading that's not too obvious on the patterned paper, just to make the ruffles look like it's sort of the fabric's flowing as well. Then you also get some little button stamps in here too. So you've got a little heart-shaped button with the thread in the centre of it. You've got a round button without any thread in it, just the 4 holes. And you've also got this gorgeous little button, which you find a lot on like little cardigans and stuff, with that sort of almost cat's eye kind of divot in the middle of them. And then this one I also love. It's one of those little tomato pin cushions. Again, perfect for adding into like a lovely little cluster of haberdashery kind of bits and pieces on your card. And then finally we also have this kind of little label sort of design with the stitching around it, and lots of the different sentiments will fit inside this label. Or you could just write someone's name in there. You could write handmade by and have that on the back of your card. You could do loads of them and make it almost like a brickwork pattern on the back of your card as well. So lots of different ideas just for using that label too. Then all of the sentiments that we get, some really nice punny ones in here as well. So you've got cute as a, and then you've got button. You've got you are cute as a button. I love you, mine, to catch up on. I really like this one, combining stuff. Tailor-made just for you. Thanks. So happy, which you can use in conjunction with this one. So you can do so happy to catch up on, and then you can use so much on the end of it. And then you can do thanks beyond measure, and then so happy we're friends. And I reckon you could mix and match these in with like birthday sentiments and stuff as well, like so happy it's your birthday, or you could even do something like so happy to catch up on birthday memories, or you know, something like that. You can really mix and match some of these little sentiments in with other bits and pieces that you might have in your stash, which is nice. Then let's look at the die set, and if I zoom into the stamp set, I'll show you the 3 dies that coordinate with the stamps. I think there's only 3. Actually, I suppose we could use a couple of these actually to cut out some of the buttons. So you have the dress that you can cut out. Then you also have the little bow, and you also have the little hat as well. So you can easily cut those ones out. Then I guess this one would cut out that larger round button, and this one would cut out that smaller round button as well. And then I think that is everything that will actually cut out with the dies, but I'm sure you could use some of these extra ones, like maybe even stamping the shoes inside that little circle, or using that to put the clothes peg inside of for a different modern kind of looking card, or even the cotton reel as well. So you could actually use some of your other dies within here to cut out bits and pieces as well for a different look for a card too. So those are the ones that coordinate. Then I'll put these ones back because I need to show you those for other uses. So the rest of the dies that we have is, firstly, we've got this gorgeous zigzag border kind of die, which looks nice using both sides of it. So obviously when you cut it, you get both sides. So if you were cutting it to use the side that had the stitches on, you would then have the fall away piece for the other side of it, which I actually found was great for stamping your sentiment onto, and then just trimming off either end of it, but having that little zigzag along the bottom of the sentiment piece was a really nice addition. You have got a little needle, which is really nice, and the eye on the needle is actually big enough for you to be able to put some baker's twine or thread through it as well, which is nice. You can add that like texture onto your project. But you do also get in here a piece of thread as a die, and I'm sure that would work really nicely with the needle as well. You could poke it onto either end of it depending how you wanted the thread to kind of flow on your card, and this cuts out really nice and finely. I really like that die. I think it's an excellent one to have in your stash because you could use it for lots of different applications. It doesn't just have to be a piece of thread. It could be the string of a balloon, or for a kite, or maybe for a baking themed card. It could be a squiggle of icing that someone's piped. It could be just like a streamer. You could add lights to it. It could be like a fairy light banner. You could add the circles to it, and it could be like those big round sort of Christmassy lights that you can get as well. So a nice extra kind of die to have in your stash. Then we also have this button, which has the separate outside edge, which you can use on that stamp, and then the interior cuts out the two little buttonholes on there as well. And it's quite nice to have them separate because depending on whether you want to be able to see through the holes in the button, you could actually cut the solid one separately and then back it behind it. You've got this gorgeous little one, which I love. It's a little thimble, and it really does press that detail into it as well. So it really gives a lovely tactile kind of feel to the thimble too. Then you have got the gorgeous sewing machine. I mean, look how lovely that is, and it actually has the bubble to go around it as well. On one of my cards, I used the bubble from vellum to kind of mute the background behind it, and then I added the sewing machine back on top. I think every instance I use the sewing machine, I cut one from metallic and one from another colour of card, and then I snipped off from the coloured card one, I snipped off any areas that I wanted to be metallic. You could go really into detail on this and like snip either side of this so that that is metallic, and around here with the foot of the sewing machine and stuff. I think mostly I just did it for this and like this central section here, but you can definitely go to town with this, and I think paper piecing those little leaves back in, the design of the leaves, would look fantastic as well. So you'll see this on 3 cards later on. You also have a ball of wool, which has got like the lovely directional kind of wrapped wool around it. And I was going to see, I think that circle is the same size, if not a teeny bit smaller. So if you want the ball of wool to not be see-through, you could use that one to back it as well, rather than having to stick it onto a piece of card and cut round it. So that's nice to have a circle to back it with too. You also get this small little die here, which really cleverly or usefully, they have put 3 little buttons on so that they're not tiny little dies that you're going to lose. I love these little kind of buttons, real life buttons of this, the little flower ones. I've got quite a few of them in my collection. You've also got a square button, and then you've also got a little cross or a plus or a kiss that you can use as well. You could do it as like little cross stitches. I was actually using it as just like a scattering element on my card, but you could also do it as like if you've got some kind of rhinestone or diamondy kind of aspect to your card, you could use it as a little like shine mark as well. I also love this one. This is a safety pin, and again it looks fantastic, especially cut out of mirror card. So you've got the safety pin and you also have the little bubble to go around it as well. So so depending what kind of card you're making, how you're going to use it and stuff, you've got the option to stick it onto a bubble so that you could raise it up with 3D foam as well, or you could cut loads of apertures with the bubble down the card and make it a shaker and then stick the little silver safety pins back over the top of the acetate or something as well. You've got that kind of option. Then this is the little zip pull that would go with the zip stamp, which is really nice. You've also got this one, which that one cuts out that smaller stamped button, but you also have the exact same sized button with the little pinpricks in the centre of it to indicate where the holes are, that you could layer up on top of each other, or just use a mixture of them, or again use that smaller circle to go on here and make like some fairy lights as well. You've got a gorgeous, intricate, elegant kind of pair of scissors with quite a lot of detail in there as well, and you will see that used on one of my cards too. And again, you've also got the bubble to go with that one as well, which is nice, so you could do some kind of shaker card with it as well. You've also got a dressmaker's dummy that has got some really lovely detail on it as well. And this one is a verso die, so you need to cut both of them together to get the detail with inside the dummy. And then you could cut just the outside one and snip off the legs of that one and then just put the solid piece behind the dummy. And I think this one would look really nice paper pieced, you know, the sort of die cut paper piecing. You could add like metallic onto here in different sections, or you could really bring in a colour scheme for all the other bits of haberdashery that you might be putting on the card as well. I love this one. You'll see this, you'll see past me show you a card that I've used that zip on, and I actually, I've probably explained this later on, I can't remember because I filmed it so long ago, but I actually used the Tim Holtz, you know, the thread cutter paper distresser thing to distress the, I think I used patterned paper that I'd put along the edge of the zip, so it kind of gave that frayed edge of the fabric going up to the zip as well. So you could actually use this to create a sort of more revealing kind of portion on the card, and again you can use the zip pull with that as well, so it looks like the zip is opening. And you could even, if you wanted to, stamp the zip continuing down your card as well, so you could have the top portion is open with the zip pull on it, and then you could stamp the rest of the zip coming down here if you wanted to as well. That would be pretty cool on a DL card actually, because that would be the right kind of width for a DL card, and then you could add that longer zip stamp all the way down the card, so that would be another kind of option. Then you have this large button as well, which you can use that circle to, you know, do some stylized kind of cutting of some of the stamps, the smaller stamps in the stamp set, or you can use it to back the ball of wool, or you can use it with that interior verso detail to give you the 4 holes of a button and some stitching detail on it. Then we've got this little die here, which I think is some kind of clip. I couldn't find it anywhere to Google what the actual name of it is, or whether, you know, it's what I'm thinking of, but I'm sure these are like a gold colour and they're like some kind of clip, and I don't know if they're used in sewing, but I presume they would be if it's on this die set, but I couldn't find the proper name for that, but I think it's some kind of little clip sort of thing that you would use in sewing. So if anybody knows, let me know in the comments, because it's bugging me that I can't figure out what that actually is. And then I think that's everything off of the die set. So I think this is a really lovely die set for anybody who loves their sewing or knitting, or I guess you could even maybe convert it into being like crochet themed as well, or tailoring too, because it could be sort of to do with more like suits and things as well. I mean, just the scissors, you could turn this into more of just like a crafting kind of card, just, you know, paper cutting scissors rather than having to be to do with fabric and stuff. Anybody who loves fashion, you can really go to town with the dress and the hat and the bag and the shoes and all sorts. So I think this is a really nice versatile kind of one, and I love that you get the punny sentiments in there too. I always think that really elevates a card to give like a punny sentiment to go along with it as well. So yeah, I really love this stamp and die set. So I'll be back in a second to show you the other 2 extra samples that I've made as well. So these are my 2 extra cards that I created. So I wanted to use the sewing machine again because I really love the sewing machine, and I wanted to make it, I don't know, look a little bit more like a modern reincarnation of like an old Singer sewing machine, if that makes sense. So I wanted to combine it with the stamps. I don't always like using stamps and dies together, but I think adding something to the die cut that is coloured with the same pens that you coloured the stamps with, I think it helps sort of bring the whole thing together. So the backing for the sewing machine, you don't get a die to do this, you have to fussy cut around once you've stuck one of the detailed dies onto it, but it's not too difficult. They're very like easy sort of curved lines. The only thing you've got to do is like miss and not snip through the extra bits that are sticking out the edges. That's like the hardest part of it. But to make it kind of tie in with the stamped images that I'd coloured, I used the same colours of the Nuvo alcohol pens, and I coloured a piece of card red, and then I just drew some random like little dotty bits all over it. So it kind of just, I think it just ties it together a little bit better and brings in the exact same colours that you were using, and then to like bring in the thread from the cotton reel at the top, I brought in the same turquoise colours that I'd used as well to kind of tie your eye in. And I also wanted on both of these cards to bring in real buttons and gems and things to really make it look like a lovely haberdashery kind of a card. So for the background, I went with that zip, and I just did 2 of them. And I actually used the Marble Statue Nuvo Hybrid ink pad and stamped it a few times, so I used my stamping platform. But Marble Statue maybe 3 or 4 times stamped on top of each other still gives a lighter grey than if you'd used the Metro Grey ink pad. I just think it's a nicer, subtler kind of silver or grey, and it kind of goes with the silver silk embossed luxury card that I'd used for the metallic elements as well, so I quite liked adding that little extra in the background. And then to build up sort of in front of the sewing machine, I've used that lovely little tomato pin cushion, and I coloured the ends of the pins to be the turquoise colour, and I've used the little pair of scissors on there as well, and I've also combined some of the metallic card with like the little safety pin and the little thimble and then that zip pull there, and this is where I had cut away the black to reveal the silver for this as well. But you could definitely just leave it black as well if you wanted to, depends what kind of card you're going for. And I quite like actually cutting the sewing machine from black as well, because again that ties it in with the stamping, because you've got a black outline on it, so it ties it in with the stamping. And I was thinking something extra, because I've used red, turquoise and green for this card. I could have cut I could have coloured a piece of card with the same colour green that I had used on the tomato, and then I could have cut the sewing machine out again and paper pieced those little leaf designs back in. I think that would pull it together even more as well, because it would bring some of the green onto the machine. So that's definitely another option for bringing in a third colour to your sewing machine as well. And then I just sort of finished it off with extra like little buttons from my stash. I picked this one because it had the little silver around the holes, so it tied the metallic in, and then I've just sort of poked in some green and turquoise to kind of balance the colours across the card. And then again I felt like I needed more green, so I matted my little sentiment onto the green. And this one is actually the let me get the stamp set again. This one is the one that says tailor-made just for you, but I didn't ink up the tailor-made, I just inked up the just for you, and then I also used part of this stamp, which I made straight on my block before I stamped it, and I just did little stitch lines above and below just to sort of tie in that stitching theme again, because we've got the sewing machine on this card. So that was one of the extras that I did, and I've also used a little cherry heart gem actually on the middle of that button that I put on the control portion. So that was the first one, and then I love this one. I really, really like this one. So this is a very kind of like haberdashery explosion on the card, and I did thanks beyond measure because I'd used the measuring tape on there, and you can see how I just drew a black line just using one of my favourite Adhesive fine liner pens to add the detail on, because these ones don't run with alcohol pens. They work really nicely with the Tonic alcohol pens. So I just drew an outline around it, and I made it look like it kind of had a torn edge, because obviously this wouldn't be the beginning of the measuring tape. It would go off to 11, 12, 13. So I did it as like a little ripped edge for that one. And then I just sort of stamped, coloured and cut out all of the little extra bits and pieces, like some of the little pegs, the little cotton reels, the other sort of little spool as well, that gorgeous little tomato again, the scissors, and then I also cut the thimble and the safety pins again as well. And I also thought, those of you who are Tonicaholics and have been around for a while, or maybe you bought some stuff in all of the Cyber Week sales and you got some sort of old packaged dies and stuff in there as well, they used to always put these little pins on their packaging. They used to be like pink, blue, orange, green, depending on what category of dies they were in. And so I put the Go Forth and Craft on there because it had a little pair of scissors on it. It's kind of hard to see. But I just poked a hole in my card and then pushed the little pip on the back of it through and then secured it with a bit of foam tape underneath. But I thought that's kind of like the perfect way to add a little nod to tonic to a card. So you could give this to somebody who is a tonicaholic and they would really appreciate that sort of little funny element of adding one of those little packaging pins onto there as well. They're so useful, those. I've used them in so many different applications. I love adding the butterflies to boxes or flowers and stuff, or you can turn them into magnets if you snip off the little back bit with the Tim Holtz snip scissors. They're really great for snipping off the little pip on the back of them. But I really love how this one turned out. It's really cheerful and like bright colours, and I did the measuring tape yellow because my mum has a yellow measuring tape like that, so I always just think that they should be yellow. I know you can get them in different colours, but I always think they should be yellow. And then obviously I coloured the tomato like a tomato, and then for the pin heads on this one I did a mixture of orange and turquoise to go together with the rest of the card, and I pulled in more of the green with the little buttons as well. And I just love adding real buttons too, and you know, everybody kind of has buttons in their stash, whether it's one that's a spare one off a shirt or whether you've, you know, gotten rid of a shirt and you've saved the buttons or something. You know, you've always got a few buttons around, so it's quite nice to have a way of using them on a project. And then I've used some of those cherry hearts as well, just to tie in the red a little bit more too. So I really, really love this one, and I think the other cards that I made, can't really remember. I think they were a little bit cartoony, but I feel like these ones are even more sort of like, I don't know, I just really love this style. This like cartoony, whimsically kind of style. I don't know, I can't really explain it, but anyway, I really love how this one turned out, and I really love the style in which they're drawn and stuff. But I definitely do think actually a card like this, you could definitely bring in some of the stamp clubs. I'm just thinking of the tortoise again because I just love tortoises. But you could like have the little tortoise character poking out from some of this sewing stuff as well, or a butterfly, or a snail or something. You know, you could really add in a little bit of quirky extra characteristic to it as well, bringing in a little character from somewhere else too. So I hope you enjoyed these two cards, and I will pass you on to Past Me to show you the other cards that I created as well. So these are the samples that I've created. These first two are in my sped up video. So I did a really like simple kind of pair of cards. This one just with a bit of broken china distress oxide ink blending on the background, with some of the stamps in there as well, just the tape measure and some of the buttons. And then I thought I wanted to try and make like a wreath kind of design, and I thought like everyone who has like a sewing desk, or you know, somewhere with like all sorts of sewing ephemera with like safety pins and thimbles and buttons and stuff, there's usually somewhere like a little pot or a dish or something that all the little bits get chucked, you know, when you can't be bothered to put them away. So I thought trying to create something like that on a card would be a really nice sort of focal point really. So I kind of just ended up sticking things down as I went and building a kind of circular wreath sort of shape, but also making it look like they were just sort of thrown onto the card as well. So I hope that kind of feeling sort of comes across, but I quite like how it turned out actually. I could even have like incorporated some real buttons into it as well, like not just the die cut buttons. You could have put real buttons, maybe even real safety pins on there too. Would look really cool as well, because it would bring like an extra dimension into it too. And then I just finished that one off with the tailor-made just for you sentiment on there. And then the second one I did in the video, I wanted to show a way of using all the different bits and pieces in a background, and instead of spending ages sticking all of these really fine intricate scissors and bits of thread and stuff down, I decided to use a double-sided adhesive sheet. Then I pressed on all of the little die cuts just from white cardstock all over, and then I used the Blue Blizzard glitter in the centre and sort of faded it out into the ice white glitter to give a sort of spotlight effect in the centre of the card. And then I've just taken some like tealy sort of coloured cardstock to do the sewing machine on the front, and I've also shadowed the sewing machine with silver, so you've got like little hints of metallic peeking out of those swirly effects. And then behind that I've also backed it onto the Pearl Damask cardstock, so it's actually got a pattern to it, which I thought was a nice sort of extra little detail. It gives it more of almost a fabric sort of look, which, you know, kind of goes along nicely with the haberdashery sort of feel. And I've also like snipped off areas to leave the silver showing underneath as well. I was going to do it around here, but I thought I might mess it up, so I did just leave the teal on there. But if you wanted to, you could snip off parts of that so that the foot of the machine is also silver, and maybe even some of the pins that are holding the thread on at the top. But I really love this sewing machine. It's a really cool vintage kind of style. And then for the sentiment, I compiled a sentiment out of the little word stamps that are in there, basically. So it says, "So happy to catch up on so much," which I thought is a really lovely sentiment to send just to someone who you hadn't seen in a while and you've had a nice catch up with. So those were the two that are in my sped up video. Then I've done 5 more? Yeah, 5 more extra ones. I did this little one, trying to make it look like one of the actual like vintage Singer sewing machines that have the gold, gorgeous leafy designs on it, but they're black. So I've tried to sort of emulate that, and it's got multiple layers on it where I snipped off different elements to give it that look that the actual machine is black, but just the decoration on it is gold. So for example, I snipped out all of the detail from the centre and was just left with a thin black strip that I stuck around it. I then backed it onto black as well, and then I also put another gold one behind it to bring back in the thread and all of those bits and pieces, the delicate details on there. I've also used the sort of zigzag die that's in there. It was actually the waist piece from another card, and I just thought, well, I might as well use that to stamp my sentiment on, so I did "I love you so much" for this one. And then I've just used one of those actual I think they're called docking wheels that you have in sewing that sort of marks out little holes that you could stitch into. So I've just done that 3 times on each side of the card to give it a different look. But you could have also die cut this with a stitch die as well. That would also give that kind of a look and look really lovely. But I'd already stuck the sewing machine on when I thought to do that, so I went with that method instead. So that is that sort of a vintage style, really simple, literally just the sewing machine on a white card. Then I wanted to show how to use the zip as well. So I've used some of the Tropical Paradise patterned papers to try and sort of tie the colours of all of the rest of these cards together. And then I actually cut the zip twice and backed it. So I wasn't sure how I was going to stick it down, whether I was going to like manipulate the zip to sort of stick up more, so I wanted it to have silver on both sides just in case. I didn't end up doing that, but it's just made it nice and thick though, really, so it's given it a little bit of stability. And then so to get the zip to actually sort of go into the piece of paper, the way I did it was I sort of laid the zip piece down, and to begin with I drew a line above the zip. So I put the zip on top of the pattern paper and I drew a pencil line above the zip there and cut that out first. So I was left with a piece of paper that had this sort of V shape in it. And then obviously, because I was drawing from the inside of the zip, it wouldn't fit exactly around the outside of the zip. But all you have to do is just keep cutting away until it fits in there perfectly. There might be an easier way to do it, but that was just how I was doing it to get the zip to go in there. And then to give it a sort of more authentic kind of look, I also used the paper distresser or thread cutter to ruffle up the edges of the pattern paper so it looks like sort of fraying fabric. And then I also went round with a tiny little ball tool and did a little debossy line so it kind of looks like, you know, really tight sewing. And then I also did some little white stitches with a white gel pen as well, and I drew on that little sort of you know when you have like a half zip jumper, they often have that bit of sewing at the bottom of them that's like a square with a cross through the middle. So I added that on as well, and then I stuck the zip over the top. So again, I used the tailor-made just for you for that one, and just a lovely, really simple card. Then I did this one, which I was going to do a shaker card, but in the end I decided to layer some bits of card behind it, and I really like the look of that. It was a leftover tape measure that I'd stamped out, and also the leftover piece from cutting, I think it was this piece, cutting the bit to go behind the sentiment on here. I used the kind of teal coloured cardstock, put some double-sided tape on it and put glitter on it, and then I had one little piece of it like left over, so I decided to put that straight down the centre of the behind the dummy, and I think that looks really nice. And then to make the end of the dummy look different, I was going to do it wooden coloured, but then I thought, well, there's no other brown on the card, so I wasn't sure if it would really go. So instead I took the actual die cut that came out of the aperture and then snipped off the bottom piece and coloured it with the same ink that I'd stamped the bows with in the background. So I decided to do that in the end, and I think it goes really nice because it sort of coordinates much better. I also had a couple of elements left over from that wreath sort of design I was doing, so I put them at the bottom. The rest of the background is literally just ink blending with picked raspberry and one of the large Nuvo ink blending brushes. Then I stamped the little bow on there and the so much, and then I've just gone back in and put the thanks so much as the sentiment. I had also before I had done all the die cutting and stuff, I'd splattered the background with water, and so in some of the areas I circled those splats with a white gel pen, and in other areas I just added extra little circles on there as well, just to give a sort of, I don't know, ethereal kind of background to the card, just for a different kind of look. Then this one is just using the stamps, so I did a bit of paper piecing with patterned papers, again from the Tropical Paradise Colour Trend paper pad, and we've got the yellow for the bottom of the dress, then I used a piece of that teal cardstock for the belt, and then some pink paper for the top part, and then I mixed all three together for the hat as well, and I just sort of placed them so the hat, you know, it looks as if there was a body there, the hat would be in the right place to be sitting on top of their head. That's how I kind of placed that one. The background is Broken China Distress Oxide, and then I used that Simple Hearts, I think it's called Simple Hearts stencil that came out with the chalk mousses a little while ago, and I just did a bit of ink blending through that, and then I did So Happy We're Friends in a few places on the background, and then I also did that in black and matted it onto black as well and cut it out and stuck that on. So really simple card, and you can obviously do this for so many different colourways as well, depending on what pattern papers you use, or you can just colour it with your alcohol pens as well. And I also added a little bit of shading onto the patterned papers because I just think it gives more of a dimensional look, and it kind of disguises the fact that the pattern is continuous across the skirt, whereas it should fold in and out with the folds of the skirt. But if you add that little bit of shading, it kind of disguises that the dots don't sort of fold around the shape of the skirt. And then the final one I did it was going to just be really simple, but I thought it looked too empty, so I came back in with that zigzag die and added that just white and white along the bottom, added an extra trim of the turquoise card, and I mounted it onto that as well. Then for the actual tape measure, oftentimes these sort of old-fashioned rolled up tape measures are always in this yellowy kind of colour, so I decided to use a black pen to draw around and turn it into like a ripped off piece of a tape measure, and then I just coloured it with those kind of colours of alcohol pens. And then again I had more elements left over from doing previous cards, so I just scattered them down the card, and I really like how that one turned out as well. So just some kind of simple sort of ideas that just might, you know, spark something for different ways to use this stamp and die set, and also showing you how you can actually sort of Google an image of the old-fashioned decorated kind of sewing machines, and you can kind of mimic that style to turn it into one that, you know, looks like maybe your grandmother or somebody might have actually owned. So yeah, I will pass you back to future me to finish off the video. So I hope you enjoyed the other cards that Past Me just showed you that are featuring on the packaging, which is just so exciting. I love seeing my cards on the packaging. So hopefully you enjoyed those ideas as well. And hopefully I've given you enough ideas for the extra bits and pieces that I didn't have when I made these ones. So like with the zip and the stitching and some of the extra stamps and stuff in here as well. I just love that tomato. So hopefully you've enjoyed all of the ideas that I've shown you. And if you want to get hold of this So Happy Stamp and Die Showcase number 18, there will be affiliate links in the description below the video and also on my blog post as well if you want to get hold of it. And I really do appreciate you using them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you had a really lovely Christmas and a lovely New Year as well, because I think this is going up beginning of the new year. So hopefully you had lovely celebrations over the end of last year and the beginning of this year as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!